we have number 10 Miami taking on number 6 Ole Miss, and this is a matchup that not a lot of people expected. They really weren't expected to get this far. It took a couple of upsets for both of these teams to get here, and they will match up in the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona, with the winner obviously advancing to the national championship to face the winner of either Oregon or Indiana. So this one is going to be really, really awesome to watch. This is just a test of defense versus offense straight up. Miami has one of the best defenses in the country, and the same could be said about Ole Miss's offense. So we'll see who bends or breaks in this one. Miami, if you recall from the college football playoff selection process, they were controversially the last at-large team that was put in over Notre Dame. And the reason for that, they cited the head-to-head matchup earlier in the regular season where Miami did beat Notre Dame, and that ultimately was what led to that decision. And Miami, they have shown they absolutely belong. That was not a fluke decision. Obviously, they're in the semifinals now after beating Texas A&M in round 1, and they were really, really highly touted throughout the year. They were almost undefeated before losing to Texas to ruin their undefeated season. And then Miami also took down the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes in a huge upset. They handled them pretty much all game long. They were outgained in that game against Ohio State, but the Buckeyes, they were forced to just 1.9 yards per carry rushing, and they threw 2 interceptions, with one of them being a pick six. So that Miami defense was all over the field all day long. And in those 2 games against Texas A&M and Ohio State, Miami only allowed a combined 17 points. So that is pretty remarkable for their defense to continue to do that and look to do so against Ole Miss. But speaking of Ole Miss, their first-round matchup wasn't even close. They destroyed Tulane 41-10 in that first-round matchup before upsetting the Georgia Bulldogs in the Sugar Bowl 39-34 after a pretty wacky ending. But quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, he led them to a game-winning drive, and that was absolutely incredible to see if you watched that game in New Orleans or if you went to the game. But Miami, speaking of their defense, like I was saying earlier, their defensive rankings, they only allowed 13 points per game in the regular season, which is good for 4th in the country, and 285 yards per game, which is good for 10th in the country. And they will put that to the test against an Ole Miss team who finished averaging 496 yards per game of offense, which is 2nd in the nation, and 37.6 points per game, which is good for 10th in the nation. So again, it's strictly offense versus defense. I know a lot of people like to say defense wins championships. We'll see if that continues to reign true for Miami. Trinidad Chambliss, like I said, the quarterback for Ole Miss, he has thrown for nearly 4,200 total yards and 29 touchdowns, so he has had an excellent season. And Kewan Lacey, their running back, has rumbled for almost 1,500 rushing yards and 23 rushing touchdowns. He has been a beast near the goal line. And for Miami, they'll be going up against that led by defensive lineman Ruben Bain Jr., who has arguably been one of the best players in the country, period. And although he does get double-teamed a lot by the offensive lineman of the other team, he still has managed 13 tackles for loss and 9.5 sacks, including 3 against Texas A&M. So he was all over them that whole game. And quarterback Carson Beck for Miami, their offense isn't too shabby either. He has completed 74% of his passes, so really, really efficient through the air for over 3,300 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. And those 10 interceptions might seem like a lot, but that completion percentage, he is still super efficient when dropping back to pass. And he has been helped a lot by wide receiver Malachi Baby Jesus Toney, who has led all freshmen in the country with 94 catches for over 1,000 receiving yards. So he has been a great, reliable option for them in the passing game. And in terms of, if you like the history between these two teams and this bowl specifically in the Fiesta Bowl, this is Ole Miss's first appearance in the Fiesta Bowl. This is their first time ever being here. Meanwhile, Miami has been here 4 times and has lost all 4 times. So they really wanted to try to right that ship and rewrite history going forward. And between these two teams, they have only faced each other a handful of times. They've only played 3 times, with the last time they played was in 1951, where Miami won that game. But in the all-time series record, Ole Miss leads 2-1. So we'll see if Miami can tie things up in this one. The spread right now, Miami is favored by 3.5 points. And it's a very tough call to make because 3.5 is a weird number when it comes to spreads, because that means usually they'll win by a touchdown or so. It's not just a field goal that we get you the win here. But I don't know. It's a very, very tough decision to make. Miami's defense has been stellar all season long and throughout the playoffs, so I might want to lean with them a little bit just to get the job done because, like I said, defense wins championships, but Ole Miss, their offense is just ridiculously good, and what they did to Georgia was very, very surprising to me. So I kind of like Ole Miss to cover here, 3.5, because even if they lose by a field goal, like I said, they would still cover the spread. But again, this is a very, very tough decision. I would try to stay away from this a little bit and just enjoy the fireworks. Hopefully it ends up being a high-scoring game and Miami's defense isn't too menacing. But hopefully we're in for a treat in terms of entertainment from sports fans.